Hey everybody, it's Jerry Rasco, and today we are kicking off a brand new review series here on the channel. If you're a subscriber or a longtime fan, you would hopefully be familiar with the other three series that we have running as of the recording of this video. So we started out with The Amazing Spider-Man, going back all the way to Amazing Fantasy 15 and reviewing the series issue by issue from there. We have The Incredible Hulk, where we started with Hulk #1 and we're reviewing that series. And then, of course, we have the X-Men. The focus of all these series, if you're new to the channel, is to look at the artwork. We do talk about the story, but primarily we're focusing on the art and the various techniques that these classic artists use to bring these stories to life. So I really look at them as an excellent learning opportunity if you're a new or younger artist looking to figure out how to make comics. These are all great series in which you can learn a lot of really good techniques. There are things in here I've used in my own art, so I do highly recommend it. Now, most important is, of course, not only this new series that we have today, but we also have a giveaway. So if you're not a subscriber yet, you're going to want to click that subscribe button. It's completely free, costs you nothing to click that subscribe button, but it puts you in the running for free artwork. That's right. There's free artwork that you could win if you are one of the lucky subscribers chosen when we get to the 1,000 subscriber mark. We'll be picking subscribers at random, and they will receive no purchase necessary, no even shipping costs. Everything will be shipped to you for free. Original artwork that you could win. So that said, let me show you this artwork real quick before we get into the series. So first, we start with The Amazing Spider-Man. This piece celebrates that series that kicked off the whole thing here on the channel. We have The Incredible Hulk. You can check out that series as well. We've got the playlists here on the channel. We have the X-Men in their original school uniforms. This series as well has, again, as of the recording of this video, we're not too far in, so you can go back and check out that playlist and catch up with us there. There are two other series that will be coming down the road here very shortly. First, we have Captain America. We're going to be looking at his solo series. And then, of course, we have the Fantastic Four, the first family of Marvel, the comic that kind of kicked off the Marvel universe, right? So we're going to start with Fantastic Four #1. However, today is about another really important series to Marvel, and we're starting with #1, and that is the Avengers. We're going to be looking at Avengers #1 today, and here we have the original lineup of the team, and we'll see that very shortly. Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Wasp, and Ant-Man. So just by clicking that subscribe button, you'll be part of this community, and you'll be in the running to win some free artwork. So if you haven't subscribed, click that button, and we will definitely appreciate you being here. So that all said, let's get over to this comic and let's check out Avengers #1 together. So here's the cover to Avengers #1, and this is obviously an iconic cover. We've seen this redrawn many times. We've seen this same layout reused many times, whether it's, to celebrate the change of the Avengers lineup or just retro, kind of look. We have seen this a bunch over the years. Very nice framing, having Loki, our main villain, very up close in the foreground here. Of course, he would have already been introduced in the Thor series, and so therefore he's recognizable by the horned helmet, the green and yellow, plus Thor does have a word balloon here saying Loki, and his name again here in the on the cover. So it's easy to recognize even without the face, but then we have the rest of the heroes that are going to be joining us framing in. Nice idea. You put your smaller characters obviously in the front, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Thor and Iron Man are kind of in similar sizes, and then the Hulk being the larger figure in the back. So very nice stuff there. Overall, really good. Obviously, this is a Jack Kirby cover. I don't have credits on who inked the cover, but we'll talk about who inked the interior pages here shortly. Couple things I do want to point out. #1, just real quick about the history of the Avengers and the comics. So I did some research, and obviously there were team books before this. obviously one of the large ones would be the Justice League of America. So DC had their heroes, and the Justice League of America did exist and proved that it could sell comics. So the idea of a super team, if you will, of individual heroes banded together in a book had it was a proven commodity. You could do this, it would sell. However, what I found out was something I did not know before. And then that was, in terms of the scheduling, Daredevil #1 was supposed to come out the time when Avengers #1 came out. However, the book was delayed. I don't know why. I'm assuming there was some sort of a maybe art delay or a technical issue or something. But they weren't ready to go to print with Daredevil #1, but they needed a book to fill that gap. So something to note in the in the older days of comics and magazines and printing and stuff, Marvel Comics does not print their own comics. They don't have big giant print machines like a newspaper or other printing organization where they would print their own comics and send them out. They would construct all of the artwork and the finished pieces for the comic, and then they would send it to a printer who would then print it, compile it, staple it, and then get it shipped out. And so when you had a run, you said, I'm going to be printing, let's say, 5 comics this week, and it's going to be this. Well, if Daredevil is supposed to be one of those 5 and he doesn't fit because the comic's not ready, you've now wasted time, and yet you're still going to pay for that time. So it was important that every time they had scheduled printing time on those big, large industrial printers, they had something coming through it. And so what they did was they said, hey, we don't have time to come up with something all brand new, design new characters, new plots, new everything. Let's just take our best existing solo heroes and put them in one title together. Again, the proof of concept had already been successful with something like the Justice League, and so they knew this would work. So at the time, here's some of your biggest heroes: Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So they all had solo stories. It was easy to put them together without really conflicting with their own continuity and their own stories. So this worked out great and obviously has proven to be extremely successful. As I always do with this part of the series here in the comics, this is a scanned PDF copy of the original comic. And that's why we have this original ad on the inside of the cover, and we'll see other old school ads there as well. This comic was made in 1963, and so it is of the times, but I really enjoy the fact that we get to see these scanned copies on the computer here, so we can zoom in, we can flip pages back and forth as we like, but it's as close, even though it's digital, it's as close to the original experience as we can get today, unless you have a lot of money. And then it's really hard to get your hands on a good Avengers #1, right? So overall, let's talk about the creative team. Written by Stan Lee, drawn by Jack Kirby, inked by Dick Ayers, lettering by Sal Rosen. So I think if you go to any of our other series, I know that Dick Ayers has been an inker on some of those other issues, whether that's the Hulk, maybe, I don't know if he did any of the early X-Men, but I know we've covered Dick Ayers and his background, his history. He was somebody that definitely did great work in that silver age of Marvel Comics. An excellent inker that worked over a lot of people, but certainly this combination with Jack Kirby is really, really good. I really do like this combination quite a bit. So this page, let's start with the splash page. Splash pages are really important. Again, if you're not familiar with any of the series that I do, or kind of comics in general, the splash page is how you kick off your whole story. So you generally dedicate your first page of your comic to one large, bold image that helps draw the reader into the story and get us engaged. And that's exactly what this does here in a very subtle way. So it isn't big action. We don't have the character of Loki standing on top of this peak and screaming at the sky or something like that. He is just a profile shot looking across, sort of musing on his plans to get revenge on Thor, right? That's always Loki's motivation. The very bold shadows are really nice. And I like the page composition here. You have Loki on the left looking right. That's always important to move your art from left to right as much as possible, because that's how we as Western readers read. We're going to start in that top left corner and move our way across. And not only does it do that, but you have these individual figures here of the heroes that are going to be part of the story. So Loki is looking at them even though they're not part of this image, but it reads to us that way, as readers. So we see that lineup and it works great. You have the heroes on one side, the villain on the other, this sort of rocky terrain, which is fine. It just sort of sets us up in terms of a scene, but it's the face and the heroes on the side that I really, really like, plus those shadows. So Loki is looking for revenge. He wants Thor to... He's trapped on this, I guess, island. It's I forget what it's called here. Where does it say it? Asgard, home of the Norse gods. Oh, here we go. The Isle of Silence. So he's there. So he's looking for Thor to come to him so that he can fight Thor and potentially use that to escape this trap where he is and get back to Asgard. So, but Thor at this time is on Earth, and he has a mortal form, so he transforms back and forth, kind of like a lot of the heroes of the time. He transforms back and forth from Dr. Donald Blake back to Thor. So he sees him as the Doctor and knows that he needs to get Thor to change into his Thor persona, and that's why he's going to fight him. So as Loki is looking around for what would tempt Thor, he sees the Hulk. And he realizes he can manipulate this situation because that's what Loki does. So it's a really good setup here of, the overall story. Why would Loki get involved with these other characters and things? Because he needs Thor to do what he needs him to do. And so it works out well, I think. The camera moves are really nice. You've got different images in every panel, even though we have a lot of panels. So it keeps it interesting. So overall, very solid startup. We have the Hulk jumping around, and he does mention the fact that he's not flying, he's leaping, even though it does kind of look flying-ish. But the Hulk is leaping around, and then Loki uses this to his advantage, right? So he creates an illusion of a scenario where the Hulk is going to destroy this train trestle by accident and get blamed for it. The one thing I did point here, and this is important to note, and I have an example of what this means and what you do with it. So what I'm getting at is the 180 degree rule. So what that means here is we are looking at the Hulk, and the Hulk is flying across our view as readers from left to right. Just like I said, left to right is important. It adds energy and motion. When things are going from right to left, it feels backwards to us as Western readers. So left to right is important, and that's where he's going, and there's the train trestle. So Loki creates the image of dynamite, and the Hulk sees it and jumps down, except now he's moving in the other direction. And that's problematic. So what that means is somehow in midair, the way we would read it, or the way our brains would understand it, is the Hulk is moving this way, sees the dynamite, somehow turns in midair, even though he doesn't fly, and crashes down instead of seeing it and changing his body position to land. So what's happened here really, essentially, is we've just changed sides of the train trestle. So meaning the 180 degree rules. A full circle is 360 degrees. I'll put up the graphic here for you to see. Full circle is 360 degrees. If we are looking at an object, there's a straight line from our eyes to that object and straight through that object, and it cuts that circle in half. That is 180 degrees. That's half of a circle. And so if you can move anywhere you want on that 180 degrees of one half of the circle, and you're good. You've established it. Everything is moving in the same direction. It's perfectly fine. If you jump that line and go from one side of the half circle to the other side of the half circle without explaining it, all of a sudden things look like they're moving in the wrong direction. This is used a lot in professional sports, for example. Once they establish what side the camera is of the field the camera is on, or the court or whatever, you typically do not flip it. Or if they do, they will actually tell you like, flipped angle or something to that effect, because they don't want people to go, wait a minute, all of a sudden that guy started running in the wrong direction. So back to the comic here, that's what we've got. The Hulk is moving from one direction to the other, and then he turns in midair and crashes, which is weird. So we've broken the 180 rule, and you don't want to do that. I do like the figure a lot. This Hulk is really good. This is a very classic Kirby Hulk that I like. If you go to the Hulk series, it's not always as consistent, but this early version is really good. I like the face. I like the thick musculature of the body in terms of how, he's not a bodybuilder, but he definitely is large and bulky, which adds to the monstrous nature. We are also in an era of the shorts Hulk. So there's a point, if you go back to our Hulk series in that early, in the early episodes, early issues of the Hulk, couple times, he's much smarter character than what we think. Not as smart as he is as Bruce Banner, but he's definitely not the savage third person talking Hulk. And then he kind of goes with this era for a little bit where when he transforms, he's wearing these little shorts instead of the ripped up pants. And that's kind of the era of Hulk that we are in right now. So the Hulk is able to save the train despite Loki's best efforts, but it does enough. People think the Hulk is attacking the train, but we have his best pal, Rick Jones, who's essentially responsible for the creation of the Hulk, and he knows the Hulk is innocent, so he's trying to find some other heroes to help, and he uses the Teen Brigade. So note here, the Teen Brigade is formed in Hulk number 6. Basically, Rick Jones gathers together a bunch of fellow-minded teenagers with ham radios to set up a communication network, and they will call out to heroes. They will call out to each other. They'll try to help out and do things. And this is sort of, it comes into play in Hulk number 6. And we can see obviously how it comes into play here with the formation of the Avengers. They start to try to talk to the Fantastic Four, who at that point would be the only real superhero team, if you will, in the Marvel universe, right? So we've established that. But Loki knows that, and he doesn't want the Fantastic Four involved. He wants Thor involved. So very interesting visual way of expressing this. It's radio waves. How do you show radio waves in the air? Well, you really can't. But they use these sort of like almost Morse code dots and dashes, if you will, along with this magical, mystical whirlwind, which moves the radio waves away from their intended destination of the Fantastic Four and into a radio that Thor can hear. So that's exactly what happens. Nice transformation here where you go from this form of Donald Blake tapping his cane on the ground to Thor, but they're in the same position after. It's a nice little transition there. I like that. It's pretty good considering, talk about this very quickly for this series. These panels are all really, really small. 9 panels per page is a lot of artwork. And it was very common in these early days of superhero comics. Part of that comes from the history of your newspaper strips, where you have newspaper comics, right? Usually funny cartoons, but they have sort of 3 panels, all the same size and shape. And you also had not only like the funnies, as they are often called, but you also had serious comics like Prince Valiant, things like that. And so I think Flash Gordon had a comic strip at one point back in the day. And so the idea of taking those 3 panels, cutting them out, and then reprinting them in a book format like this was something that was done in early comics. So The format is there. Now we're creating it from scratch with art. And that means this original art, when it's drawn, if it's drawn at the original or the current size that we use today, the paper is 11 by 17 and you draw inside of a 10 and a quarter by 15 area. So that means these are about 3 inches by 5 inches. Actually a little less than 5 inches. So maybe 4 3/4 or 4.5 inches. So yeah, very small panels, right? Full scale, they're maybe this big. So you're packing a lot of art in there, but still doing a really nice job with the amount of details, the transitions, giving us a unique camera angles. All those things are really important and done exceptionally well. So Thor hears the message as Loki wanted, and he's going to have to go after the Hulk. Ant-Man and the Wasp also hear it because they monitor radio signals as well. That's how Ant-Man communicates with his ants. And so oftentimes he'll pick up signals. That's exactly what happens. So he and the Wasp jump into action as well. Last one, of course, is Iron Man. His suit picks up all kinds of transmissions and things naturally, and since he's technology based, so he is going to gear up, and this early Iron Man suit is a lot of fun to look at. Obviously, if you're familiar with Iron Man, the very first suit was gray. It quickly switched to this gold, and then in no time we're going to get the classic red and gold armor that we're used to, but this is that intermediate. I guess you would call this the Mark II, if you will. And I really like the flying pose there. Again, small panel, but really nice work of him coming at us, flying through the clouds, and a little bit of an arc. The hands coming forward. You got some foreshortening on the arms and the body. It's done extremely well. This is a really nice pose there. The kids think that they have failed because they have not heard back from the Fantastic Four, when, of course, boom, they do. And this is really good expressions. Everybody's real excited and happy. That's a really nice panel there to show people excited. This guy in the background might be a little too excited. He looks a little like psycho excited. But the Fantastic Four reach out and just let him know, like, hey, we're busy, but, if you don't find anybody else, let us know, and we'll do what we could do. And all of a sudden, they're like, the Fantastic Four can't help. But boom, here's Thor. Now, where did Thor come from? I'm assuming Iron Man walked in through this door, and they mentioned Ant-Man and the Wasp are these little dots that must have flown in through the window. Did Thor climb in the window? There's no background. That's where again, when you have a super small panel like this, you're going to miss those background details because there isn't enough room, or it's going to be all covered up with the dialogue anyway. And so we don't see how Thor suddenly appears in this room with the kids, as opposed to, at least we see the open door. If Thor climbed in the window, that's a little embarrassing. Like, the God of Thunder should make a better entrance, in my opinion. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp show up, and they use, this is so weird, they use this camera. They let's get into this camera, and we'll shrink down and squeeze ourselves in between the lens, and that'll project our image on the wall. Why don't they just get big? Why don't they just hit their button and go back to regular size, talk, and then shrink back down when they need to? I don't get it. Maybe there was a story element that I'm missing, I'm not a big Ant-Man and the Wasp fan. Obviously, I have not read that series from the get-go, so maybe it's possible they can only transform so many times a day or something like that. So they wouldn't be able to get large and, enlarge and then get small again. But it seems like that would be much easier than trying to use an existing camera and project their images. That's weird. So Loki, of course, is watching everything, and he sees what's going on, and he wants Thor for himself. So this is going to not help. So he, again, uses his powers of illusion to create the illusion of the Hulk that only Thor will see, and get him out and away from the rest of them. And it works. I really, actually really like this. This is real subtle. So Iron Man and Rick Jones are having sort of a conversation in the foreground, and you see Thor turn to the window because he's caught a glimpse of this illusion Hulk. And I like that. The fact you could have just drawn Thor looking out the window. We didn't need it, but having this foreground element and having the real thick ink outlines to separate the foreground from the middle ground from the background behind Thor is a really nice touch. The whole thing is done very, very well, and that is an excellent, excellent panel. Obviously, Thor realizes it's a trick. Only Loki, the god of mischief, would have these kinds of ability to trick him that way. And so now he's going to have to go and confront Loki because that's the real problem, not the Hulk. And this is very Thor, right? Thor starts off a lot in these early comics as, I'm very concerned about what's happening. And then something happens on Asgard, or he realizes, or it's Loki or whatever, and he'll just sort of bounce. Almost, again, he's supposed to be the god of thunder, the Norse god of thunder. And so, his concerns maybe are beyond the rest of us mortals. So for him to kind of come and go, I guess is in character. Let's put it that way. Let's see. This face, though, not great. And I'll explain why. There's a couple of things here that aren't working for me. Number one, very important, when you are drawing your characters and you're crafting that, starting with that sort of circle egg shape and breaking down where the face is going to go, make sure your eyes line up so that if you draw a straight line across, which I can't really do because he's at an angle, but you draw a straight line across, do those eyes line up? And they're close. But what doesn't work is the irises, they're just black dots here, aren't looking in the same direction. Now, some of that could be printing error, a little extra black ink. All of a sudden on this eye over here takes it out of and makes it look like he's not sort of looking up to his right. But you got to make sure your eyes are looking in the same direction. The eyes are in line with each other. One isn't higher or lower than the other. These are very, very important things. And then here's the other part. I talk about this a ton in all of my videos because it happens over and over again. And I'm going to show you some examples here shortly. But the idea of this image of Thor is that the original vision is to be looking up at him. He is turning his head up and looking up into sort of the sky, right? He's like, Because of that, how do I know that? One, I can see the underside of his top lip. So if he's looking straight at me, I'm not going to see that piece. So I can see that, which means I'm looking this way. I can see the underside of his nose and the nostrils. So that tells me if he's looking straight at me, the nose is going to end here. If he's looking down, I'm definitely not going to see them. So when you're looking up, I'm going to see the underside of those nostrils. So the head is tilted up slightly, but the features remain in place of looking straight at. So meaning these features should be different. The nose should be slightly shorter. The mouth should be slightly raised. The chin would project more, but we don't see it. We see a straight on face, but the features are drawn looking up. So it's this mishmash. Let me show you here. This is an example I found online where you can see all of the different angles of the human face and how the features change depending on those angles. And so you can see here that extreme head tilt is very complicated, but everything shrinks up. Your nose gets closer to your eyes in appearance. Obviously not really, but it lines up much more. Whereas in the center where you have your straight on look, again, you're not seeing the bottom underneath of the nostrils. You're not seeing the underside of the top lip, underside of the jaw, stuff like that. So it's important that if you're going to do the head tilt, again, here like Thor or any other character, make sure that all the features are following the tilt of that head, that they're not just pasted on straight on, because it doesn't work. We cut here to the Hulk. The Hulk has decided to take refuge in a circus and pretend somehow to be a robot in a clown suit. Now, how this works is beyond me. What I mean is, like, obviously the circus folk, they are going to they're going to act like this is a robot. So the Hulk has shown up, tricked somebody into being like, yeah, I built this robot. Because otherwise, how do you explain this giant green robot just showed up? Like, somebody has to take responsibility for it. So the Hulk has somehow convinced somebody to go, yeah. I built this giant green super strong robot and it can be part of the circus. And everybody just buys into it. So it's a very weird thing. Like, how does that happen? I like the image. I mean, the great big, fun juggling the animals, like, that's really cool. I think that's a really fun illustration. Certainly not something I would have thought of as like, where would the Hulk go to hide? The circus. However, like I said, it doesn't make sense logically how, if he's the only one that knows that he's not a robot, how's he convince somebody to let him into the circus and start doing this act? The animals are good. The elephant is extraordinary. That's really, really nice. All the wrinkles and sort of the bulges of the musculature through the elephant, really good. The horse actually drawn very well. That poor horse looks like it is having a cardiac arrest. I feel for this poor horse. And then this, I'm guessing, is supposed to be a seal. It has flippers, but it also seems to have 4 legs, which doesn't really work. But I'm assuming it's just a misdrawn seal. It took me a while to think about, like, what is it? Is it a dog? No, it's not a dog. Is it? And the closest thing I could come up with is seal. That's what I think it's supposed to be. Let's see here. So yeah. And everybody's, so this is the thing, like, wow, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. It's hard to believe he's only a robot. He looks real. But nobody explains, like, who was like, hey, I got this robot here. Weird. And then Ant-Man finds him. He's got his connection, his net, his network of ants. And one of them finds this at the circus and reports back and goes, hey, this might be it. Now, instead of confirming, the first thing Ant-Man does is use the ants to dig underneath turns out to be the Hulk. He's right, but digs underneath the Hulk while he's performing feats of strength at the circus to cause a cave-in. What if this wasn't the Hulk? This is incredibly irresponsible of Ant-Man to be like, I'm just going to cave in the bottom of the circus. Nothing else bad could happen. The tent couldn't collapse. All the people, look at the crowds of people in the stands. Nobody will panic. Nobody will get hurt. It'll be fine. Like, it's so crazy that, you know, it's like, don't worry about it. It's fine. I really like this image, though, of the clown Hulk here sinking into the ground. The rubble is really nice. Jack Kirby is probably one of, he's in the Mount Rushmore of rubble for me. His rubble feels weighty. It feels, it's different. I mean, normally, to be honest, or later, I guess, he has more angular drawing style. Things are more blocked off, squared off. But here, everything feels organic. No two shapes are exactly the same, which is awesome. So it's the illusion of randomness. Really, really good stuff. And now the Hulk is stuck, but the Hulk is never stuck because he's so strong. And of course, this tips everybody off that it is indeed the Hulk. They try to capture him. That doesn't work. And he's like, I'm done with this. So now he's going to take off. He's given up the guise of being a clown. And obviously, Ant-Man and the Wasp are not going to stop the Hulk here. Creative use of these... the bellows, blowing the wind, knocking the Wasp down, and then pinching her between his thumb and finger. That's a really nice piece there, actually, because when you're doing something that's so large next to something so small, you have to be careful of your line work. It could be really tempting to take and fill in all this big space with lots of line work, rendering, hatching lines, etc. There's just enough here, so that's very nice. And then Iron Man appears. And this is a really good Iron Man. Again, sort of coming out of the crowd, slight lean forward, the hands ready to go. That's really, really good. I like that. He does appear to be missing his little shoulder antenna, but that might just be because the background is black and it was supposed to be there, but it's so thin and the black ink bled and it just sort of filled in. So that could be there, but overall, really nice image of Iron Man. Hulk goes to escape and they think they've got him trapped with some netting and stuff, and no way. He's too powerful for that. And he leaps away and gets the jump literally on Iron Man and kind of just disables him. He doesn't wreck him. He doesn't crush him. He doesn't, rip his armor apart. He just damages it enough so that Iron Man can't keep chasing him. So it kind of tells you a lot about the Hulk at this point. He's more than crushing and smashing and doing stuff. He's definitely more of a just leave me alone kind of character at the time. As we mentioned earlier, Thor has left. He has gone to Asgard, and we see Odin. This is very cool, neat armor, kind of a combination of sort of a Viking, Roman. It's sort of this mishmash of mythology, armor and stuff, but it works really well. The only thing I'll point out here is that Odin, in this image, has 2 eyes. And in mythology, Odin only has 1 eye. That does change later in the Marvel comics, and obviously they're not beholden to the exact mythology here, but the whole idea of Odin is that at one point in his life, he sacrifices his eye to have vision or clarity or knowledge later. So it's sort of a sacrifice type thing and becomes a big part of the character, again, in the mythology and then later here in Marvel Comics. Okay stuff here, nothing great. The water actually is very, very nice. The inking on this water is really good. Water like that, like an ocean with waves and stuff, can be difficult to draw at times, to make it look like water and not look like sand or snow or something else. And all the water is done very, very well. Very organic shapes, nice combination of solid blacks with sort of dotted little other shaded areas. Really good stuff there. Of course, everything that Loki tries isn't going to work. Thor has got him, even to the point here where Loki calls upon the trolls who live underground, but Thor is able to thwart them. This troll design is creepy as, I literally wrote creepy as all get out. That's crazy. The weird head, these super long fingers, the hair on the back, he's twisting his leg around Thor's leg so he can pull him back into this hole underground. Real creepy, real weird. But I really like it. It's a design that makes you feel kind of yee. And so we're happy when we see Thor break out and use his lightning to escape. So good stuff there. And then, this gets a little silly. Just that, so again, Thor is able to overcome all of Loki's illusions, and then he uses magnetic currents. His hammer is able to pull in magnetic currents and basically turn his hammer into a giant magnet that sticks to Loki. And so now he can just carry Loki around because Loki is stuck to Mjolnir. Listen, obviously we all know that's not how magnetics work, but it's a magic hammer, so I get who's to say, right? Kind of interesting. The Hulk is still trying to escape. Iron Man is on the trail, and then it's very strange. So there's this little bit of Hulk leaping past, a plane sees it, Iron Man gets confirmation, yep, we saw him. And I guess it makes sense. He says he's heading towards Detroit. So now we cut in the next panel and he's inside of a car factory. There's something about this that seems weird to me. I guess just at first glance, maybe I felt like the Hulk, I don't know if anybody else, well, actually there's a couple of things here. Well, number one, I don't know if anybody else remembers these things. There were things that we had as kids, my generation, that were called color forms. They're basically little plastic characters, drawings. You could peel them off of a page and put them onto a scene. So I all the time, of course, would get superhero color forms. So maybe it'd be Spider-Man, and you'd have a swinging Spider-Man and a Green Goblin or whatever. And you could make little images by sticking, and then you could just peel them off and re-stick them again. It wasn't a glue. There was basically like a static cling that made this plastic stick to it. That's what the Hulk looked like to me at first appearance. Like, this image of the Hulk was just pasted on top of this auto factory background, only because this guy is looking at him with his mouth open. This guy's kind of looking same, but nobody's really reacting. Like, nobody's freaking out, and he's not really interacting with anything. He's just sort of weirdly leaping over everything. So it felt like this was just kind of stuck on top of this original drawing. I don't think that's the case, but that's just what it reminded me of. Then the other thing here is the Hulk, and I've noticed this a couple times, and I haven't really pointed it out. The Hulk does not have the right number of fingers and toes at times. So like right here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and we're assuming 4. So there are times when the Hulk goes from 5 fingers to 4, or toes to 4 as well. I'm going to chalk it up again to small drawings. When you have this many panels, you're drawing small. It's just hard to get into all those details sometimes. But obviously it's important enough that, hey, you want to make sure people note it, especially if you do have your close-up, like here again. And maybe this is just a mistake. 1, 2, 3. The Hulk only has 4 toes. The Hulk obviously has 5 toes. He's not like the Thing, who has fewer fingers and toes than a normal person. The hand here at least is correct, so that's good. I like this face a lot too. The tires don't stop him, so he's going to use these gears and some sort of a belt as like a big, basically like a crossbow. And he shoots I'm going to assume that this is a drivetrain shaft at Iron Man, who's able to stop him. But I like this one isn't as good. This Hulk face, not quite as good. I do like the strain of him pulling this back. That kind of gives you an idea, like this thing's coming at some speed. But this image of the Hulk is much, much better. I really do like that that piece quite a bit. Iron Man comes back at him, thinks he's pinned him to the wall, and the Hulk just pushes himself through the wall. Now here comes Thor. This is a really nice Thor here coming in from above, the cape floating up, his arms raised up. This is a nice, simple figure, but it really works. And I like Loki stuck, kind of drawing his legs up, trying to get away from this as much as he can, even though he's stuck to the hammer. I think that's really good. And Thor explains the whole thing. It's all up to Loki. Loki's the one who did all this. It wasn't the Hulk. And before they can act, all of a sudden Loki turns himself radioactive and dangerous. I do like the inner core lighting. So this is really nice. This core shading on Loki. All of a sudden he goes from just sort of regular to, you have these real dark shadows throughout his figure in the center of those forms. And it just helps sell the idea that there's energy or light irradiating off of him, which is really, really good. So I like that. That's done very, very well. We'll go to the next page, and this makes no sense to me. So they've just escaped. Let's be very clear on the continuity here. They were in an auto factory. The Hulk pushed himself through a wall to get outside where he would have more room to fight. So they're outside of this factory right now. However, as Loki turns radioactive, there is a trap. A bunch of ants throw a switch, and he falls down a trap door, which takes him directly into this container, this lead-lined container that is used for radioactive waste. And I'm like, why is there a trap door? Obviously, there was no plan on confronting Loki or the Hulk in this location because the Hulk fled here first and everybody followed. So there's no way to set up a trap ahead of time. Nobody knew it was Loki. Nobody knew Loki was going to be radioactive. So why would the trapdoor lead to a lead-lined tank that is specifically designed to contain radiation? None of that makes sense whatsoever. Realistically, here's what we've got. We've got a story where the Avengers, well, they haven't called themselves the Avengers yet. The heroes are fighting the Hulk. We get down to the, hey, it's a misunderstanding. It's really Loki. Loki makes one last bid, and we've written ourselves into a corner. How do we get out of it? Well, he's got to go into something lead-lined to keep the radiation at bay, but there's no reason that should even exist. But he's caught, and then Thor's going to take him away once he says he can only be radioactive for a few more minutes, and then he's going to take him back to Asgard. Ant-Man and Wasp suggest staying together as a team because of how well they work together. The Hulk is on board because now he can be one of the good guys and people leave him alone. And there we go. There's the Avengers. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot one other thing here. Where was it? There's a point where Thor mentions right here. They're fighting and Thor mentions, you know I would come to avenge it. You committed some foul deed knowing I would come to avenge it, and avenge it I shall. So that's the first time we hear that term avenging, and makes a lot of sense that we then come around and call the team the Avengers. So that's the history and the beginning of the Avengers, and that's the whole comic right there. So let's cut over to the desk and let's wrap this one up. So that is Avengers #1. I'm sure a lot of people are vaguely familiar. If you're a fan of, obviously, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you would say, aha, I knew it's Loki. Loki's the threat. That's what brings them all together. Makes sense. Obviously, the team is different. We do not see Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye. Those characters will come much, much later. Your original core team is small, but at the time, some of the best selling Marvel heroes in the comics line, so makes sense to put them all together. A lot of fun. There's some really nice stuff. There's some really great Hulk illustrations, even for itty bitty tiny little panels. There is some very good storytelling. It's clear and concise what's happening most of the time. That ending got a little hokey. I feel like we kind of ran out of real estate and we had to kind of wrap things up in a panel or two. But otherwise, things are very good. There's action throughout. The characters are done very well. I really like this comic quite a bit. Even for the time, I would say it's not the most... not polished. Polish is not the right word, because the art and the inking combination is extremely good here. Everything looks very well done. The lighting is always well done. The ink lines, using thicker lines to separate things, rendering when necessary, changing up the rendering based on lighting, all is done really, really well. So it's not about polish. It's just, I guess it's just an older style. Small panels, lots of talking heads. Not obviously my cup of tea. I would prefer a more, what we consider modern comics, as I always say in my other series, big panels for big action. That said, from a rating, so I rate every comic out of a scale of 1 to 10, and there are times when we can do decimals as well. I am going to give this comic an 8 out of 10. I think it's really good. It brings this team together. It deals with a not credible, but a realistic threat in terms of Loki and how he plays everybody. Overall, again, just really, really good, and I enjoyed it. most importantly, I want to hear, did you enjoy it? How do you feel about Avengers #1? Is this the comic? If you read it, is it the comic you remember? If you haven't read it and you're only familiar with, say, the cartoons or the movies or things like that, how does this shape up in comparison? So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. So please feel free to leave comments below. I do love to check out everybody's comments on these series. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me today and walking through Avengers #1. I had a great time, and I hope you did too. So let's all come back here same time next week for more Avengers. Thanks.